What do we know about masculinity?
Inside this auditorium in Washington, D.C.
I know that many of you now understand even the language that we use and how we talk. Language is huge, and how we respect women, right?
3 educators discuss domestic violence with a group of young male athletes.
What are some of those other messages that we get about how we should treat women?
How we are used to seeing it is that you should treat women as an object and that money is everything and that you could get women from having money.
I want one more.
The instructors are part of a program called Men of Code, a series of ongoing workshops held with the football team at Friendship Collegiate High School.
We are engaging these young men who are athletes to really join in this movement to end violence against women and girls.
Becky Lee founded Men of Code last year.
This is a really important issue that we need to address early. And in high school specifically, when a lot of these students are getting into these relationships, are starting to date seriously, it's the most perfect time to talk about dating and domestic violence.
Lee says she wanted to work with a football program located in what she calls an area of need.
Put your bag on the table.
As students arrive every morning, they pass through metal detectors and have their bags checked by security guards.
¿Cómo estás?
Despite its challenges, this is also a school with a graduation rate of 90%.
Hasta mañana. Muy bien.
You're going to get a behavior. You're going to come up and you're going to place it on this line where you think it should go.
In one of the workshop exercises, players were asked to rank examples of physical abuse, from the least egregious to the most.
Punching in the stomach while pregnant.
That's serious. I would put that on the most abusive.
Most abusive?
Because that is totally wrong. Why would you punch a woman in the stomach while they're pregnant?
Right.
I have the worst one. I have rape.
You have rape. You see these, thinking about these behaviors that sort of give an example of what domestic violence looks like.
The issues of, relationship abuse and sexual assault are much bigger than sports. But sports does have a positive role to play.
Dr. Jackson Katz is a domestic violence educator. Since 1993, he has worked with thousands of athletes, high school, college, and pro, through his Mentors in Violence Prevention program, or MVP.
The goal was to get more men talking honestly about sexual assault and domestic violence and getting them to start speaking up and standing up and saying, this is not okay. And our thinking was, if we could get men who already had some status within the campus culture to provide that leadership, then it would make it easier for others in the larger peer culture.
Katz recently held an MVP workshop for the Plant High School football team in Tampa.
We need more men who are willing to take some risks and be leaders on this subject. That's a big part of my work.
How often do you hear what you consider to be sexist statements?
We know that there are some guys who have certain beliefs that are pretty sexist. One thing we hear is shifting the responsibility for violent behavior onto the victim rather than on the perpetrator. So guys will talk about how she deserved it, or she was asking for it, or she was pushing his buttons.
If you're walking down the hall and one of your teammates is pushing his girlfriend and you see this happen, right? And you don't say anything, does that send a message to her, the girl who's getting pushed up against the locker? Does it send a message to her in any way?
You're essentially sending the message to her that she's not worth intervention and that you're degrading her more, obviously not to the level that he is, but you're sending the same message and that she's not worth your time.
Okay, right. Okay, well said, thank you.
They're so raw. These kids are dealing with these new relationships, learning about things, but also going through the same emotions, same temptations, same sort of situations at that sort of micro level in high school, which they'll face at even higher levels.
Men of code, being able to have the code on the field, but what you gentlemen are doing, being able to have that same code off the field, is so important.
The Men of Code instructors often bring in guest speakers.
Boys don't control their anger. Men do.
Such as Gary Clark, the retired Pro Bowl receiver who won 2 Super Bowls in Washington.
Would you ever hit your mom? Would you ever hit your sister? So why would someone else do that to a female? Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Don't get me wrong. I know we all have anger from time to time. But it's how we control our anger that makes us a man or not.
Why is it important to talk to high school football players about domestic violence?
I learned that early as a child, as there's a certain way that you treat women and you treat lady in terms of you just basically never put your hands on a woman.
I experienced domestic violence between the ages of 8 and 11.
Damani Jones is a junior linebacker who grew up in a home with a single mother.
I seen it and I went through it. My mom actually had an abusive boyfriend at the time. Biggest thing I learned from Men of Code is you just don't do that. You gotta give women the utmost respect.
And honestly, most relationship abuse takes place in private. And by the way, it's true in the NFL as well. I mean, that Ray Rice video is, the reason why we're talking about this is because the Ray Rice video.
For committed advocates, it's been difficult getting people to seriously address domestic violence.
Because of the Ray Rice situation, because of the video, because of the prominence of the NFL, because of the pressure on the NFL, there's the possibility for a new conversation.
It's elevated the issue out into the mainstream, which I think is very important because we often don't get the attention on this issue unless something bad has happened.
When you're doing this, it has to be something that means something to you, not what you think somebody else wants to hear. Okay? Who's next?
My name is Dietrich Marsh, and as a man, I believe in having integrity, doing things that, you should always do, even when somebody isn't looking.
Good.
My name is Aaron Walker. I'm determined to stop domestic violence if I see it in the streets, and I'm also determined to be a successful young man in life.